Okay, we'll go ahead and get started here. If you have a question for head coach Nicki Collen, please raise your hand. We'll call on you. Doug Feinberg, go ahead.
Coach, good to see you.
You too.
Falcons jersey today, it looks like?
Well, it was working there for a half, but seems like Seattle's picked it up in the third quarter, so not sure I'm giving them much luck.
They did. So have you made any friends from Dallas in the last couple hours, reached out to you?
Exactly.
How do you feel today?
I feel like there should have been at least text messages coming in offering me something, to play my bench or to do something, but no offers at this point. I'm not sure they won't all be back to be cheering along the baseline, though.
How do you approach today? I mean, do you just play it like normally and as if you're trying to win the game, or do you give people more time? Like, how do you approach today's game from your guys' standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of that is up to our players. Like, and I know that they want to win. I know they were incredibly disappointed. There was a lot of confusion over what the tiebreak procedure was based on, what you read online. So really the first time we knew we were out of this was yesterday morning when I talked to the league office about really, what the tiebreak meant, because I truly believe that it was head-to-head against each team. So, but clearly that's not what it was. So, we just have to kind of play for each other and pride and play the spoiler and, kind of do all the little things. I think our players are pretty motivated because I do know that, we're here a couple extra days now because of, what happened a couple of weeks ago when we were supposed to play Washington the first time.
Sounds good. Thanks, Coach.
Got it.
Carolyn Peck, go ahead.
Hey, Nicki, the first time you two met, Kennedy Carter did not play, and they had Stella Johnson. So your teams are different, and you're both playing at your best. So what are going to be your keys today?
Well, I think when you look at them, especially as the season's gone along, Hines Allen, obviously the key for them. She's at 22 points a game in wins and 14 points a game in losses. So she's a huge key for them. Like if you look at Miesemann, who's also a great player for them, 13 in wins, 13 in losses. So as much as you can analytically, you look at what is the biggest difference in their wins versus losses. And a lot of that has been Hines Allen's success over the last, week to 10 days because August was pretty hard on the Mystics. So, I think she's a big key for them. We've got to take care of the basketball, and we got to do a good job against their ice. When they can pin you on the side and their ice, they're pretty good defensively. But if you can get the ball moved side to side against them, you can get good shots. They're also coming off a back-to-back. So, we've got to play with a lot of pace, and we've got to play with, we can't I think when you're playing for something bigger, when you're playing for a playoff position, when you're playing, that when a team puts a run on you, it's easier to dig down, and push back. I mean, I felt that way against Connecticut. I felt that way against Chicago. We were still kind of in it and grinding. So the big question is the first time Washington puts a run on us, do we have that like inner motivation that we're just fighting for each other at that point, that we can push through? Like, I think we're ready to play. I think our players, want to win the basketball game. But it'll be up to me to keep them motivated at what point Washington's going to make a run. And that's going to happen. It happens in every WNBA game. So, it's kind of how do we punch back knowing that it's still about, hey, it's better to at least finish in a three-way tie type situation than it is to, really finish behind Dallas and Washington in the standings, even if we don't move on.
And if I could follow up one more question, a technical question. I heard you talk about in one of your press conferences of Elizabeth Williams finding her space off ball screens. What do you mean by that?
Well, she's such a good roller, and everyone knows she's going to roll, but it's her ability to separate. So, so often, it's so important for us to, set good screens, force the help. When you've got Kennedy Carter, Courtney Williams and Benijah Laney coming off ball screens, the defense has to respect all three of them, which puts, her in a good situation. The problem for us has been teams have very much jammed the lane up with their whoever's guarding Glory Johnson or Monique Billings because they've struggled to shoot the basketball from the perimeter. So, the lane gets dirtier and dirtier. So that's a big part of us starting Shakina Strickland, that even though, Shakina isn't making a ton of threes, she's certainly capable and everybody knows it. So they stay a little bit closer. The rotation's a little later so that when Elizabeth separates off that screen, there's room for her to maneuver and finish. And certainly she was wide open and didn't finish early against Connecticut. So she's got to be better in those situations, but it's going to be a mix of, are we keeping good space so there's room for her? And then is she finishing in that situation?
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, last question, Jen Hatfield, go ahead.
Hi, Coach. This is Jen Hatfield from The Next. I'm just wondering, you talked about it a little bit earlier with Hines Allen, but, over the past week or so, as you've watched Washington, how different do they look to you than back the first time that you played them and they were in the middle of that big losing streak?
I think they were competitive in a lot of those games. So I think when you look at the playbook, it's very, very similar. Not a lot has changed that way. Obviously, it hurt them losing Miesemann for a few games. But I think they're really been steady defensively down the stretch. And then obviously they've made big shots. They haven't all necessarily been hot in the same game, but Atkins has been incredibly consistent from the arc. Miesemann's been consistent, and then, it just depended on the game. I felt like, Leilani made everything she shot against Minnesota, and Hines Allen has just been, crushing people, and I know people had Candace Parker as a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, and Hines Allen just stuck shot after shot on her. So, you got to stay pretty attached to her, especially in late game situations. And we'll just see, we'll try to mix up coverages, mix up personnel, mix up whether we're going to double or not double. But I think a lot of it comes from, sometimes you get down to the wire and, it just takes, I read something, it's funny that Leilani posted that, she had shared the Duke Kara Lawson thing about competing. And ironically, when I read that, Elizabeth Williams, who obviously follows Duke women's basketball, had also shared that with our team, about the same time. So, I don't know if it's a coincidence, but I think both teams are competing at a high level. And, late in the season, the stakes are on the line. And I think they, besides, playing well, I think obviously since, the whole reflection day and whether they were going to play and us taking a day off, I think they've continued to play for something bigger. I think that's been a, kind of motivating thread that's kept them going as well.
Thanks so much, Coach.